right, guys, welcome back. Another episode of Renew Your Finance. We got your co-host, Rondell Smith, and your host, Adrian Artist. And we got another special guest here tonight. Miss Alicia Artist is going to be joining us as we've got a great topic that we're going to discuss tonight as we get a chance to talk to some of the young people. Because like I said before, we wanted to start involving the young people, and we'd like to get some of their perspective with some of the things that they're dealing with in their day-to-day lives, as well as how that transitions into teaching them about their financial future. So without further ado, we're gonna jump right in and just do a quick recap of our last session that we had, and then we're gonna jump right into today's topic. So
the last time we met, and I know that some people were taken aback by the topic of having boundaries in the aspect of finances. And so we discussed briefly how that boundaries are good, that we should establish them for various reasons. But we also discussed during that session is that if you choose to give them a better gift than what you were giving them, and what I mean by that is that oftentimes people come to us looking for a monetary gift of some sort. But it kind of leaves a little taste in our mouth, which is a bad taste because they continue to come back and back and back and back. But we never taken the time to ask the question, hey, I'm concerned. What is going on? Because we are noticed a trend, and therefore the gift that I'm giving you is not solving the situation. So the boundary that we set for ourselves is maybe we need to, keep ourselves from giving a certain type of gift in order for them to receive a better gift that will better help and resolve the situation. Now we fast forward 2 weeks from there. And in the last, like I stated in the last episode, we talked about boundaries. But now what happened if the boundary is not outside your circle and these things are happening within your circle? So now we're talking about indulgence or overindulgence. And that's what we're going to discuss on that topic tonight. Because through various conversations throughout the weeks and throughout the days Adrian and I had, we come to understand, and that's why we have our special guest host here tonight with us. We come to understand that the way I was brought up and the things that we navigate through as, preteens, teens, young adult, pre-college, into adulthood is totally different from the kids or the young adults for today, like Alicia and some of her other friends. And so we need to get a different perspective because we tend to brush it off, us old heads. We tend to brush it off. Well, back in my day, the way we did it, what may have you, we don't blah, 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 blah. But that doesn't necessarily translate into today. So now it's time for us to hear from them and get their perspective in regards to, a young person dealing with financial things that are happening or the bombardment that are in this day and age. And how could that lead to overindulgence? So that's what we're exploring tonight, guys. Back to you, Adrian.
okay, no problem. So we've had conversations. We just recently had prom, and me and Alicia have been talking about it, and we had just, the reason that the topic came up is we just kind of have been concerned about how we transition not only our personal finances and leaving an inheritance to our children, but also trying to prepare them for us to leave them that inheritance. Because if we don't teach them, what we're learning and what we're expanding our knowledge on, if we're not passing that down to them, then us leaving them an inheritance, they're not going to know what to do with it. We'll be right back in the same situation again. So one of the things that me and Rondell have done, through our research, we're trying to see, how that transition happens with some of the habits and things that give us stumbling blocks moving from our young adult, teenage years right into our adulthood, and how we manage finances, how we view and the respect that we put on money, so to speak, and what it takes to acquire, money, or how to handle it, and the value that we put on it, if we even put a value on it. We just know we want things, and we don't really care how those things come about. So one of the conversations Lisa had with me was, just in conversations with some of her classmates, about the prom and, you know, some of the, and don't get me wrong, we all love to do things for our kids. Me having a kid, you know, we want them to have the very best, you know, especially things that maybe we didn't have or things of that nature. But at the same time, we also want to do things within reason for, you know, for our financial situation. So, Alicia, we brought you on today to just kind of talk to us about, you know, some of the things you view. And for one, how has, I want to know from your perspective, how has the transition, you know, you've seen what me and your mom have done with the way we manage our finances and how we've shifted from the way we used to be to how we're now. And how has that affected you? I mean, as far as your knowledge and wisdom and the way you view things, or has that affected the way you view things, you know, when it comes to buying things, spending money, and how you view money?
Well, at first I didn't really like it because we didn't get to like eat out as much. And um um and I would have to, you know, pack my lunch more often to places and stuff because I was using so much money just buying lunches and stuff, especially for like basketball tournaments and stuff. But then after a while, especially when I started making my own money, especially like last summer, it was like it was honestly like okay because I really wasn't going to spend as much like all that money that I made every paycheck because I was making a lot of money because I was working a lot of hours. So I wasn't going to spend all that money on stuff because I didn't need to spend all that money on stuff. And some things like you're just gonna like, especially like with shoes and stuff, you're just gonna wear them because I have like 3 nice pairs of shoes and they were like gifted to me. I never bought them; they were gifted to me, and I barely want to wear them because they're just so nice. So I don't know why a lot of people want to buy shoes in the first place because I mean, if you're timid to wear them, like a lot of people, then it's just a waste of money. And most shoes aren't really all that. They're just they're just cute and stuff, and then you can wear them out, but then you're constantly worrying about if you're going to mess them up or not. So it's like, is it really beneficial to you if you're just going to keep walking around and just try not to like crease your shoes or get them dirty or whatever? So, but ever since I've been like saving my money up and stuff, I've seen like a big difference in how much I can make instead of just spending all of it on stuff that I probably won't use again. And also like I've never been big on like buying clothes from like all the like Hollister, like all those like expensive like places. Well, Hollister isn't that expensive, but it's expensive to me. So when you can find like almost the same shirt or something, or that same exact brand from like other stores and stuff like Ross or something like that, and you can just find it cheaper. And then everybody like still compliments me just the same as they compliment anybody else about their outfits. And I got mine for way cheaper and then they got theirs. So some people may not receive any compliments on what they're wearing and they spent more money than me. Sometimes you just have to find the right dress or the right clothes at a cheaper price. You don't have to just buy name brand. And that goes with like food as well. Like, yes, I get that there's some type of food you can't make it home and stuff like that. Like there's some that you even if you try to do the recipe, you can't make it.
Right.
But majority of stuff you can make at home, or you can make
Okay.
something similar to it and save money instead of going out a lot. Like sometimes I'll see people come in to school with like Chick-fil-A and Starbucks every morning. First of all, I don't even know how they wake up that early because I don't to get it. And then, but second, I'm like, and it's like they constantly do. It's not just like a once a year thing. It's just like you just see them buy a lot of it and stuff like that. So yeah.
Okay. All right.
So Alicia, let me ask you this question. You mentioned that, you can find a suitable sub from another store versus going to Hollister, Macy's, or some of these other name brand stores. So in your opinion, and I'm asking your opinion because you obviously, you're around a lot of young people your same age throughout the day, throughout the last couple of years and whatnot. Do you believe that some of these, and this is just from your perspective, I can care less what other people think. I just put that plug out there. But it's just from your perspective that what I want to hear from. Do you believe that some of the reasoning behind why people may get the Chick-fil-A every morning or have to shop from a particular store or wear to a particular brand, is that based upon, do you believe in your perspective that based upon them liking the brand or liking to eat from a particular restaurant? Or do you think there's some surrounding influences that compels people to buy certain things from certain stores or eat at certain restaurants? In this case, we were talking about Chick-fil-A.
I think it's a mix of both, because I know, for one, I know a lot of people, like, just in general, they'll actually like the food and want to eat it and stuff. Or like some people will just not really think about before they buy it. Like, they won't think, oh, hey, this is gonna affect my amount this week, or like this is not necessary, I don't need it. Some people just buy it. Like, especially me, when I buy food and stuff, because that's the main thing I spend my money on. I sometimes think, and I'm like, do I really need it? Like, if I don't need it, then I'll just go home and I won't get any food. I'll just go home and find something else to eat at home, because it's just not needed at the moment. Like, unless, like, the only times I really buy food and stuff is like if I'm like really, really craving it bad. That's like the only time that's like the only time I'll really buy food. And that won't happen like every day. It'll happen like maybe once every 2 weeks, really. So, and then another thing, a big factor is peer pressure a lot, because a lot of people think that if you're wearing, like, I know a lot of people that, get their shoes from Walmart or something or whatever, like they'll get attacked or something like that. Like, people just feel obligated to attack people that don't wear name brand stuff, or when they find out that you're not wearing name brand stuff. Like, even if you get like a fake pair of Jordans just to save money or something like that, I mean, people will like literally like try to destroy your entire career over it, just because you didn't want to pay full price for a pair of shoes, something that would get beat up, or you probably won't even wear it, just so you can just have it sitting there. So I think that peer pressure is like a big problem as to why people do that stuff. But some people have to just look past it and just be like, hey, I don't really care what you think, whatever. And I'm just going to keep wearing what I want to wear and do what I want to do. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So what prevented you from getting caught up into that? Like, why do you think differently than what most kids your age think? Why is that?
One, I'm not interested in that. Like, one thing, I'm interested in stuff like that not a lot of normally people don't, really, like, even with like video games and stuff. Like, I only like get like one game maybe a year, and I'll just keep cycling the same games. Or if there's like free games on the internet that can work with my console, I'll just play those games. I don't really don't look for new stuff. Like, I just, I don't really, because it's a want and a needs thing. Like, I don't really need any of that. I just, it's not a need. And sometimes I just think of it like this, like sometimes, especially with like me buying food, I would like, hey, well, I'm also feeding myself, so it's not that bad.
Right.
And, I'm still eating, because, you need to eat to survive, but you don't really need to buy clothes to survive. And some people they just don't like food or something, and they just don't like to eat stuff. But I just never really been caught up in it. I don't know. I just never really been caught up in it, because I didn't find a purpose for it. And I'm not really big into fashion and stuff. So.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So, as people come up, and you're right, you surround yourself with certain groups of individuals, you'll find that, have you noticed in your school or amongst people around you that people try to indulge in certain things? Like, your vice, obviously you done said it multiple times, your vice is food. You really got a craving for, Right. I highly recommend you spend your daddy's money when you get that craving, though. That's just me. But on
you got a job.
yeah, ain't nothing wrong with digging in his pockets, though. Ain't nothing wrong with digging in his pockets every now and again. Yeah. But when it comes down to, being socially accepted, you know what I mean? Some people are socially accepted in circles because they're part of the basketball team. In your case, you're an athlete, you're part of, you do a lot of athletic things. You're on the track, you play basketball. I can't keep up, but those are two things that I do know that you actually do. And some people are socially accepted in those circles because of athletics in this case. And other feel like if they're not doing something athletic or something that's socially acceptable, like wearing a certain brand or certain clothes, do you see those cliques or those type? I know that's probably an old word and I'm dating myself, clique, but do you see some of those type circles in your school where you attend, that people will be socially ostracized or not be invited in or not included because, oh, you're not wearing the latest, I learned a new word this weekend over fashion drip. I don't know, that may be outdated by now, but just because they're not wearing a certain drip, or they're not, hanging at a certain restaurant. Do you see people being socially ostracized if they're based upon not having certain attire or doing certain things in your school?
Yeah, I know that definitely, even with me, like a lot of people at my school know me because I play basketball and I do sports and stuff. But those same people that know me and will not invite me to their birthday or party or whatever. Like they're just, I'm like basically like a popular loner. Like I don't talk to many people, but everybody knows about everybody knows me. So it's like it's kind of hard to like, because then at my school, it kind of feels like you're obligated to do everything that same group that you kind of fit in does, even though that may not be what you want to do. Like a lot of people, like I'll just see like a lot of people be like, hey, I want to get these shoes or whatever, or like, hey, we should get this so we can match, and they don't even like care about the price or anything. And it's just like some people don't want to spend that much money on stuff, and then if you don't buy it and then you're the only one in the group that doesn't have it, they'll target you because you didn't buy it. So
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think that's similar to what my youngest daughter experienced when she went to middle school, because like up until that point, she had an Android phone. Within 2 months of her being at the middle school, the other kids that she hung around with, all of them had iPhones. And then they started FaceTiming, and then she kind of felt left out. So, she came back, home, and, when we asked her what she wanted for Christmas, she said she wanted an iPhone, or she wanted, and then what was the other kind of shoes that she asked for? Were those Air Force Ones or?
Oh, I don't know.
Remember the ones we got from the Nike store? Like
Yeah.
you have a pair.
Yeah.
Like the blue ones you had.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of those?
Air Force.
Okay, yeah. So they're Air Force One. So all through middle school, she never asked. All through elementary school, she never once mentioned anything about the shoes we got her or any of that kind of stuff. But within, like I said, the first couple of months of being at middle school, now she noticed that things were different, at that level. And yeah.
So how do you handle that? So how do you handle and Adriana being a highly intelligent young girl, everybody,
Yeah.
how do you handle, because I know her, intimately. Adriana at middle school or at elementary was like, Adriana was in her own space, in her own world,
Right.
moving and shaking, doing her own thing. The most thing that I ever seen her gravitate to is knowledge. She was a very avid absorber of knowledge. Watch a lot of YouTube videos, come into light about things, and then you move her out of a certain environment that she was currently in, which was elementary. Now she's going to middle school. She's getting a little bit more exposure with different kids that she maybe never interact with before. So with that being said, she came back during the holidays, I'm assuming this happened around the Christmas holidays or what may have you, or maybe even her birthday, I'm guessing. How did you address that situation once she was like an Android user for the sake of, I'm not an Android user by any stretch of the means, but she was one predominantly. And then all of a sudden she came back and now she's looking at, I need an Apple phone and I need a certain pair of shoes. How did you guys address that once y'all noticed that, that desire or that change in her for having something that she never really cared about? Now she's specifically asking for these particular items.
Well, for us, we asked her, why is it that you want an iPhone now? And her thing was, my friends, they all have iPhones, and they do FaceTime, with each other. They get in a group and they do FaceTime. If you got an Android phone, you can't FaceTime with somebody with an Apple phone. It's just not a feature. So that was one of the things that she talked about. And her sister has an iPhone, so she was looking up to her sister as well. And it was just something that she asked. She didn't like, she wasn't like throwing a tantrum that she didn't have an iPhone. She was like, if I get one, I'll get one. I would like to have one. Next time we upgrade phones, I would like to get an iPhone. So we didn't like run out right when she said she wanted an iPhone and get her an iPhone. That wasn't what we did. But when it was time for us to upgrade phones, we inquired about what we could get her an iPhone, switch her over to an iPhone, and that's the way we did it. So it wasn't like she came home and said, I want an iPhone, and we immediately went out and got her an iPhone the next day. It was over a period of time that and I don't even think she realized I think we surprised her with it for her birthday, didn't we? I think we got it for her birthday. Yeah, so we kind of surprised her with it for her birthday. And this was during the time that we upgraded all of our phones. And then the shoes is now that we're doing the budget thing, and we have a clothing budget. So we have a certain amount that we set aside every month. Whether we use it to buy clothes or not, it's like a running kitty. So at the time, it was around, around Christmas time, Lee, I think, when we went to shoe shopping at the in Williamsburg. Yeah, we went to Williamsburg and at the Nike outlet. Thanksgiving, yeah, I think around Black Friday, somewhere around that time. And we was at the Nike outlet, and we already knew that she had asked for the Air Force One, so we went in there and we looked for some, to find her some that were, would work for her or would suit her. So it wasn't like we immediately ran out. We did it within reason. I'll put it that way, just to kind of cut it short. But we had a clothing budget, and we didn't go like top of the line Air Force Ones. We found some that she liked that happened to be on sale, and they had additional discount. I want to say we spent like maybe $79, $80 on them. So it wasn't like we spent several $100s for the shoes, and she was perfectly fine with it.
And I didn't go in there automatically thinking, oh, I'm going to get a pair of shoes. Like right. When I was going in, because I really, like I said, the wants and needs, I really didn't need any shoes. I had shoes at home. I didn't need any. So walking in there, I was just like, oh, well, let's just see what we got. Like, just looking at shoes and stuff. And then I came across a pair that was a pretty good price. And then that's when I asked my dad.
Where did you find them at? What section did you find the shoes?
The clearance. Yeah.
True to the game.
So I was, and they're a really nice pair of shoes. Yeah, and they weren't $400. They weren't even over 100. They weren't even over 90. They were like, I think it was like something.
I think it was less than that. I think it was like maybe 65 or $70.
Yeah. So.
But yeah.
Right. So based upon what Alicia is telling me and the discussion and the story that you're telling me about Adriana, in the case of tonight's topic, I will believe y'all are on the low end of the spectrum of that topic in regards to that, because when it comes down to overindulging, it's just exactly what the word is saying, overindulging. It's the same thing with eating. If you continue to overindulge in a certain type of behavior, let's just say eating in this case, and you continue to eat all the time, you eventually you're going to gain weight in this sense. Or if you continue to contribute to a certain behavior, let's just say, you have a child or you have a loved one that likes to overindulge in spending habits, it can eventually become that problem that is happening. So I will tell you, through research, there is a large preponderance, and again, Alicia and Adriana, you're probably the exception to that statistic. There is a large preponderance in this day and age where kids are very adamant about, fashion or video games or social status in that case, which lead to them to do overindulge in certain activities, spending being one of them. And so on the website, verywellfamily.com, it talks about some of the behaviors that we contributed to make this situation happen. One is giving too much. Now, what I mean by giving too much, I will tell you, that I've heard other people, and Adrian, you have made mention of that, is that around the holiday time, you tend to see people spend a massive amount of money on toys. They may have 30, 40, 50 boxes under there. And at the end of the night, you may only play with one thing.
Right. Yeah. And Alicia will tell you, like, before we had our mindset changed, we were in that exact same boat. Like me and Alicia were just talking about the other day. Like, for Christmas, we would buy them all these different things. And, it was stuff that y'all didn't even ask for, right? Like,
I remember one year I only asked for a Switch and I got like a lot of other stuff because I knew how much money because I knew how much money the Switch was. Like, even at that young age, I knew how much money it was. It was like $300. And I said all I wanted was a Switch. And then on Christmas I had other stuff. And I was like, I only wanted the Switch. I had my mindset on the Switch.
Right.
So
right.
yeah,
but
it's not
but
wrong.
as you're saying, that overindulgence, we were trying to make sure that they had the Christmas or that we didn't have. And also social media played a big factor in that. We looked at, other social media people showing their Christmas trees, and they got all these different presents for all their kids and all this kind of stuff. And we felt like we didn't want our kids to be left out, and this was a different mindset that we had. This was just a mindset that we always had grown up with. And social media played a big role in that. I'll be the first to admit it. We wanted our kids to have just as nice as everybody else, which is, I think, the same reason that a lot of people do some of the stuff that they do now. Like you said, we get caught up into that overindulgence, and I think with that mind shift is that change in mindset.
Let's explore that thought there. You said that you didn't want your kids to miss out. As long as I've known you, and as long as she's been on this earth, I never seen her missing out on anything. Right. So what invoked that feeling where you believe that if, based upon what you saw or viewed on social media, that if you didn't do something similar, like in that regard, that your kids may be missing out? Because I for one, I would tell you right now, I've never seen either one of them since she was born, and when Adriana was born, I've never seen any one of your children miss out on anything. But where did that feeling come from?
I really can't put a thing on it because, like, we buy them a pair of shoes and the next thing we buy them like 3-4 pair of shoes at one time. And then they end up growing out of them because they never even worn it, and they didn't even, it was stuff they didn't even ask for. It was stuff we thought maybe they wanted, or maybe even us trying to live through them. I think us trying to,
elaborate.
Like when we were growing up, we had like a pair of shoes. When we were growing up, in most cases, we had like a pair of shoes to match an outfit,
Yeah.
So we took that same, so even though they didn't have that mentality, I had that mentality and I almost forced it on them. Like, hey, I got you a white pair, I got you a blue pair, so this way you can wear the white with this, you can wear the blue with this, you can wear this with this, jean jackets, I got them a white jean jacket, different color jean jacket. I think we tried to project what we were doing onto the kids, and I think it just continues to recycle. That's exactly what it was doing. That's exactly what we were doing. Well, at least be speaking from my standpoint.
Well, I would tell you, Alicia, I ain't had that many pair of shoes. I won't swapping up like that.
Don't let them.
I had like 3 pair. I had a pair of Timbs, I had a pair of all whites, and I had a pair of all blacks. They went with everything.
Right. But, and we got to that point. Yeah.
But I can totally see that. And so I've sat down with some people as of recently as last week. And a young lady was expressing to me who's very frugal in her budgeting and her financing. But her child from turning from 11 to 12, her desire for certain things have changed. And she was discussing with me because I mentor her on her budget, and we tend to bounce a lot of things off each other, and we talk about finances about once a week. And she brought that to the session one day and said, "Hey, my kid came home and now she into collecting sneakers." And I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, let's talk about this, because everything that I've seen on social media, YouTube for the most part, these type of sneakers that these kids are after or going after can be very expensive. You know, from the Yeezys before his departure from Adidas, some Yeezys, you know, depending on the how exclusive they were, can be $400 to $1,200 to $5,000 just a pair of Yeezys. And then, you know, some different Jordans, these specialty versions of Jordan brands, you could see up to, you know, 10 grand pair of sneakers. I don't think that, you know, her daughter was looking to buy sneakers of that price point, but she was definitely looking to dip her toe into that arena. And I said, okay, so your daughter likes sneakers now. Okay, so throw a number out there that she presented to her. Now, mind you, she's 11, just turned 12, and she threw this number out, and I had to take a pause on the number that the young lady threw out. So she was like, you know, these sneakers had to be from $250 to $300 that she threw out there. There was some Air Force Ones, some special made Air Force Ones. I think they were the 90s, the 90 version Air Force One, which most people consider those classics. And mind you, her child lived in a well-off neighborhood. Let's be honest with you. The houses in the neighborhood are 500 plus. Right. And she go to school with kids that are in that neighborhood that come from well-to-do families and things of that nature. And this is a single mother who's living in this neighborhood with her two daughters, who's now having a daughter to come home. And, you know, so I asked her, I said, so what did you do? I mean, and the question that I have, is it hard for parents to articulate the reasons why they should not, to their child, the reason why they should not invest that type of money in a clothing item or a video game or what may have you? Is it hard? Because I don't have kids. I can easily shut that emotion off. I can tell my nieces and nephews, nah, I'm not doing that. I don't care. I don't care how you feel. So, but is it?
So I'm gonna ask Lisa that one question because Lisa's got to run. She's got basketball practice, so she's got to run for that real quick. But how did when we made the transition to change the way we thought about, you know, buying stuff and doing stuff all the time? How did that transition affect you when, or did it, you know, for asking for expensive items or things like that?
You can be raw, Alicia. I got your back.
Yeah, it kind of really didn't. It really didn't change anything. It was just a big difference because, like you said, like basically, like we would go out and stuff, you know, and I don't know. It just really didn't change anything because I really didn't ask for it. I've never been the type to really ask for anything because, like, sometimes I don't really need it. So I really, you know, as I've grown over the years, I really haven't asked for anything.
Well, let me ask you this in closing before you leave.
Okay.
Do you think our situation now as a whole with our family, since we made the change in the way we handle our finances, from your perspective, do you think it was for the better or for the worse?
I think it's for the better, but you know, I didn't really know what was like, how much, like seeing like everybody now, like having like all this debt and stuff, and then they have paid off and they're still like collecting more debt and stuff, and then seeing how we've like paid everything off, it's like, dang, they still have to pay all that stuff off and still have to worry about it, and we don't. So that's how I thought.
Okay. Now, as far as being able to, like, you have your savings and those type things, do you think that's beneficial? Because you were saying that people couldn't believe that you had saved, you know, the money that you made and doing what you're doing at your age. Yeah, like, have you seen anybody else doing what you're doing? With like, not only
I talked to
saving,
one other person that had investments, and that was it.
Okay.
It was one person. Nobody else has it.
Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah, I would tell you, Adrian, that is a rarity. And to be honest with you, I'm starting to see that it's more girls that are doing things. See you later. That's doing more of what Alicia doing. There's a young lady that's in Stephanie's school, come from humble beginnings, inner city. But when her guidance counselor was trying to talk to her about what she wanted to do with her life, the guidance counselor could not narrow in on what she wanted to do. But Stephanie asked us, like, I see you look at the stock market all the time. I see you look at, you know, some of the channels that my husband look at. You in investing, aren't you? And she started smiling because she she can relate to some of the things that my wife was talking to her about in regards to investing. So what Alicia is saying and what Alicia is doing, you know, I see that there's a lot of young women from what Stephanie is telling me that are gravitating to the more financial, trying to be financially savvy, more financially conscious to it than some of the guys. Not to say the guys are not doing it, but I have yet to hear a young man that is looking and seeking to dive into that arena of being financially conscious at a young age, unless it's pushed upon them through the curriculum.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it's not something that's talked about in their circles, and it's not something that you know is really presented to them from that standpoint. It was never presented to us, you know, when we were at that age. You know, we were like you said, more so about getting stuff, you know, like clothes or cars or rims or sound systems, because that's what attracted, you know, the thing that we were most interested in, which was the female, you know. So
yeah, I think it also has something to do with our upbringing. When you come from humble beginnings, at least for me, you know, I'm never gonna downplay or be ashamed of where I came from. We did what we could at the time that we could do it. You know, we didn't have a silver spoon in our mouth by any stretch of the means, but we had an abundance of love. You know, we had abundance of love in our home. However, you know, when you get older and you start able to make your own revenue, you tend to want to indulge in those things that you never necessarily had a chance to indulge in your younger years. And what I mean by that is that you will go out there and buy the pair of shoes that you couldn't buy in the past, or you will go out there and buy the jogger suit that you couldn't buy in the past, or even now, you know, you start getting bigger toys because you would not have the opportunity to get bigger toys. So again, on that website, it talks about, you know, that when it comes down that your child needs to learn that they can live without most things.
right.
And I believe that I would not be able to have this debt-free journey that I've already taken, and we've already went down that path, if I didn't learn how to live out with some things, you know.
Right.
And so, but again, we can be our own worst enemy also. So, you know, by perpetuating or better yet, you know, advancing overindulgence in our home, we can have our kids with a mindset where, you know, money does grow on trees. Like my mom used to say, money don't grow on trees.
Right.
But if we start doing that overindulgence of certain things, that can be a mindset that we can pass on to our kids. What are your thoughts on that? Do you believe that some of the things, like you're doing very well for yourself? You're what my pastor would call living in the overflow, because most Americans, 2% of the Americans in the United States only make $40,000 a year. You know, let's just say for the sake of argument, you make over $40,000 a year. Do you believe that overindulging your family in certain aspects and certain things can ruin the mind, especially at an early age, can ruin the mindset of how your kids perceive or think about money?
Yes, because I think, and I was reading the article that you shared with me the other night, and I agree with it 100%. I think that overindulgence prevents them from understanding, one, the value of a dollar and what it takes to get that dollar. You know, the amount of hours you have to work to, you know, or someone may have to work to get $1,000. Like, and I think the fact that if our kids ask for something and we constantly, and I know, and we want to spoil our kids, and, you know, and we really want them to have the best. We really want them to have, you know, all these different things. But at the same time, when we overindulge them, I think we're setting them up for failure as they become adults. Because when they get out in the real world and things don't go the way that they think they should go, or they get told no, or you can't do this, or you can't do that, and then they don't know how to handle that. They've never been told no before, or they've never had to go through a struggle of not getting something that they really desired, or having to go through the avenue of trying to, like when we were growing up, my mom bought me one pair of $80 shoes, but then, shoes started becoming, the more popular shoes started being $100, and my mom, set a boundary. She was like, I'm not buying you $100 pair of shoes, and the only way I could get said shoes was I had to go to work. So at 14, I was working, 40 hours a week in the sun, in North Carolina, to get the money to get said desired item. So I value what it took me to get that item, which in hindsight, I wish I made $140 for working at 40 hours, but then I spent 112 of it on one pair of shoes, so I didn't really understand the value. I understood that I was trying to get something so that I could fit in, but I still didn't understand the value of wants versus needs. Put it that way.
I can totally relate to that. However, I think mine was more different. I came up where I can actually see that there were certain things that we couldn't afford, excuse me.
Right.
And therefore, more like Leisha, not more like Leisha in the sense of she was a humble child at the beginning. There was things that she just didn't need, and she didn't feel compelled to even ask for those things. Me, I had those wants. Let's not get it twisted. There were some things that I wanted. However, I had to look around me, and I can, easily assess that it was not there for us to get, because the money that I was asking for, or better yet, the thing that I was asking for my parent to get, was equivalent to some type of bill that may needed to be paid in the house. Whether it be a light bill, water bill, or some type of thing. And there are kids in this day and age that we as parents, and not me particularly, but I'm speaking in the context of everyone who may be listening or maybe watching this video later. We as parents, we recognize those things, and we want our children to have the finer things in life, because we didn't know, or were not able to have the finer things in life. So we tend to indulge in some of their desires. If they want that pair of shoes, or they want that particular jacket, or they want to go on this trip, because social media has become such a strong platform that kids now have influencers that are not just the person that you hung out in the same neighborhood with when we growing up. Now you got individuals across, the globe that they watch and they look at, or they subscribe to, or they may even, has developed a social friend from that platform with. And from those influences, you have kids that are asking for things that in my day and age, I would never have the courage to ask, nor to think that a parent would have provided me with something like that. And you've seen the videos, I've shared them with you, of a young man, mother, single parent, bought a young man $900 Rolex watch, a $1,000 pair of sneakers, eat at some of the finest restaurants. If he can't eat at this restaurant, he can't eat like restaurants like Ruth Chris. Now, I would tell you for certain, I never ate at Ruth Chris, but if looking at that video, if that young man is eating at some place like Ruth Chris, and I'm looking at his single mom, who, from the sake of the video, that number of hours she worked in a week, she worked 120 hours in a week. I'm asking myself, when did she sleep? In order to pull off that type of those type of work hours. It has gotten very excessive, and I think that our kids, it puts a lot of pressure on our kids to try to keep up, because they've been bombarded. Alicia said something that I thought that was very relevant on Saturday when you and I was discussing that what we go through back then is not the same with what they go through right now. I don't think back then we had as much influences on us than kids do today. Then I can't hear you.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, because we didn't have social media. The only people we had to impress were the people that were in our immediate vicinity. Like at our school, we didn't have to worry about impressing anybody at another school unless we were at an event or somewhere where we commingled with them, or we were at the mall hanging out, or at McDonald's or something hanging out. So we
Right.
really didn't have the influence of social media, because I was reading that article I shared with you the other day. It was talking about the fact that the peer pressure now comes from where in the previous generations, it was keeping up with the Joneses. You know, everybody was trying to keep up with everybody else. Now it's the fear of missing out. You know, the kids now have social media and they see what other kids are doing on social media. So now they have the fear of missing out. And like I was sharing with you, a friend of mine that I used to work with, a previous coworker that I used to work with, has started a business to where they actually promote prom send-offs. And the whole reason that it's been profitable for him is because they bring in smoke machines, they bring in balloons, and then they send out flyers to family members. They do these huge events, and people pay this money to do what they call a send-off, so that they can post these pictures on social media and do all these different things. And I mean, if folks haven't seen it, it gets quite extravagant. I was sharing it with Rondell because Rondell hadn't heard about it before, and I just stumbled across it, you know, just because the prom is recent, and you know, I just happened to see his post where he was advertising, you know, prom send-offs. And this is a big thing, man. And you know, parents are spending, you know, upwards of $1,000, $2,000 on the prom for one night, you know. And my daughter was telling me that, you know, she was talking to some of her classmates, and they were spending like $5,000, $6,000 on they prom dresses for that one night. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, I'm like, I understand that we want to provide for our kids, but at some point we got to set some realistic boundaries, because if you think, for most of us with this recession, $1,000, man, that'll pay for 4 months of light bills for most people, or that'll pay for groceries for the house for that month. So that means that money's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah,
You know,
$1,000 equates to, on average, $1,000 is probably on average over half a person's paycheck for a person that makes $40,000 a year monthly.
right.
Monthly. So you're looking at one night you spend $1,000, but I don't want to sit up here and beat up the kids. Now let's be
Right,
100.
right.
Sometimes it is not all. It's not the kids. The kids are the conduit for
Yeah,
what the
they're the
parents really want to
beneficiary
do.
of, yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and
some of it is the
so
parents. Yeah.
absolutely, I've seen parents like, you know, sweet 16, you know, go what YOLO. They go
Right,
real hard
right,
with it,
right,
you know, to make that day or that event a rememberable event. But in all actuality, it's a rememberable event for them. So I'm not going to say that, you know, I would say that there's a large preponderance of children that, you know, want to have the lights, the thumbs up or whatever, the emojis, or, you
right.
know, that come across their screen. Because if you look at statistics, not kids spend a lot of amount of time on social media, but adults do too. And so, and adults are buy into what other people are looking at, how their life may be, or what's going on in their life. So
Right,
therefore, you know, you
right,
may find that some of these things that you saying my child wants or child needs, we may be the one that's pushing these things on
right.
our kids
And
because we
I was
want others to
guilty of
see
that
it.
myself. Yeah, I was
Okay,
guilty of
well,
that
elaborate
myself.
on that.
Yeah,
What do you
that's
mean?
what I was telling you. Like when we were buying the kids, like we bought
Okay,
them TVs for their bedroom. They never asked us for a TV for their bedroom. You know,
right.
I like the electronics, so I was pushing that on them. You know, and when I was telling you we bought them, you know, they didn't even ask for shoes, and I went out and bought them multiple pair of shoes. You know, just because, you know, that's what I thought. You know, you buy a pair of shoes to go, you know, different tennis shoes to, you know, match different outfits, you know, and that kind of stuff. But I think that once you realize what we're doing, and then we start setting those boundaries and teaching them the value of a dollar. Like Alicia was telling me, like that's the first time we've ever asked Alicia these questions. So I didn't coach her. So anybody that goes back and watches the videos when my daughter Alicia was up here talking earlier, I wanted it to be completely authentic. So I didn't prep her for this call. She didn't know what questions we were going to ask her. I just wanted her to talk to how she views things from her eyes. And that's what she did. So anything you hear her say, that was all Alicia. That wasn't nothing, you know, that I coached her to say or anything like that. But I say that to say this, that how we treat them now, the article that I was telling you guys about earlier says that 40% of young Americans admit that social media plays a big role into them going into debt to be able to, one, keep up with their friends and keep up with the posts and things that they see on social media, to be able to post things. Because immediately, as soon as they do something or buy something or go somewhere, they immediately have to post it on social media, because that's how they get their affirmation. But we're running short on time. But what we wanted to do, guys, for the folks that go back and watch this, and you have teenagers, me and Rondell really would like to. We're going to do a sort of like an open panel with some of the teens. I'll be reaching out to some of our friends that may have teens, children, boys, girls, and we want to hear what they're experiencing from a day-to-day perspective of some of the pressures they're under and what they see, and how that relates and how that affects them from, some of the things they may ask for or not ask for, and just to kind of, we want this to be beneficial, and we want the kids to understand and kind of get a platform for voicing, why they want these $300 pair of sneakers. And we start discussing, the root cause, because I've talked to, like I was talking about to my daughter's boyfriend, and he was saying that, and I asked him that question because he's a sneaker guy. He likes sneakers. And I asked him, I said, so what would make you buy a $300 pair of sneakers? He was like, because of how it makes you feel. He said, people like the shoes, that they compliment you on the shoes, and it makes you feel good to know that, you got something that somebody else desires or somebody else, maybe doesn't have, and he said that, and I said, but how do you justify the cost? He said, you don't think about it. It's just something that you think about the ends as opposed to what it costs to get there, so that was case in point. We were leaving the park the other day, and he looked out the car window, and he was like, I know that dude, man. They were out there having a water gun and balloon fight at the park. And he was like, I know that dude, man, because those shoes he got on is $400, and he's out here having a water gun fight in. And these are $400 sneakers that he got on. I didn't know, I couldn't tell you what sneakers cost or what they run, but he pointed it out from sitting in the car looking at his feet, and he knew they were $400 sneakers. So, I mean, it's something that I think a lot of the kids, and he was very, very open to talk about it, because I'm going to have him on when we do our session in 2 weeks. So that's just a plug for the parents that go through and watch this. And like I said, I'm going to reach out to some of them if the kids are available to have like a little panel with us. We want to hear from the kids, the teens, and hear what their thoughts are. Do you want to elaborate from your side, Rondell?
Yeah. So really, when the kids come on, it may bring some eye-opening results to them being able to, speak it from their side.
Right.
We tend to not, or better yet, we tend to downplay what they may be going through socially. And what I mean by that is that, parents, you spend time with your kids. Obviously, they live under your roof, you're around them, but their social circles that they're involved in is primarily, for the most part, to a certain extent, and every household is different, is outside your home, and it's those who they interact with, which has a level of influence on their life. And so and that's the reason why we want to hear from them, because we believe that if this topic is ever a hard topic for you to discuss in your house, and you need a way to discuss it with your children, because we're taught not to talk to our children about the finances that's going on in our home. Mm-hmm. So the kids may be oblivious that mom and dad is doing everything that they're supposed to do, because you say you don't want to cause worry on your kids. By all means, we're not telling you how to raise your kids or what you should divulge or not divulge to your kids, but what we're asking you to hear from them, because they may be more understanding than you know. Mm-hmm. However, if you tell me, if they know that you possibly don't have it, but they ask anyway, and you tell them, yeah, then there's a conflict of what's really going on. I don't have it, but I don't want to tell my kid no, because it may not be a problem with the child. It may be a problem with you. that
Mhm.
you may not be able to, your child may be mature enough to understand and handle that, the fact that we have to pivot for a short period of time in order to accomplish this, based upon what's the revenue that's coming on in the house. Or you may be on the other spectrum where you have a child that just wants what they want, and you have been a catalyst for that and been allowing that thing to happen where it has grown into it's grown out of proportion. And so what we want to do is leave you with a video tonight. It was a video, and I know most people on the call or may watch this later on, they may not be a fan of the host of this video, which is Dr. Phil. But I found it very relevant to what we're talking about. And what I mean by that is that how we may possibly been the reasoning why our kids devalue money, and how we probably assist them in getting caught up in this social media cycle of acceptance by going out here and indulging in some of their desires, but not necessarily, we shouldn't maybe necessarily should be indulging in those desires, because their self-esteem and affirmation is wrapped up to what they're getting. So I'm going to share this video with you, and then we're going to close it out, and then we'll be coming back in 2 weeks.
Selfish.
You pawn your...
Y'all need to stop playing the victim.
Bratty.
What makes you think you are entitled to somebody else's money?
Why not?
Selfish.
You pawned your mother's heirloom jewelry.
They were sentimental. They were ugly.
And uncaring.
You shove a fish sandwich in your mother's mouth.
I threw a pizza at her, too.
She says mom's to blame.
What do you think about your behavior?
She had sex. She had a kid. She grew me up, didn't she? Then it's her fault.
But she's the one who's blown
130 grand. If I give you this check.
Now, I know that's a little excessive. Maybe we're not in households where each one of us have a child that's blown 130 grand. But maybe we're in a household where we have $130,000 worth of debt, and we're still trying to indulge in some of the desires that our kids want. So when we come back next week, let's talk about it. Let's be very transparent. And please, let's allow your kids to share their thoughts also, because they may be on that spectrum where, you know what, I've asked, they've always gave it, so therefore I never saw a problem with it. Or they may be on the spectrum of what we saw just now, and the reason why they're where they're at right now, you may be actually the culprit, because in the article that we also read, there's a such thing as fear of conflict. And that fear can come in with ones that they're closer to you versus those who are not. So when we return in 2 weeks, I pray that your children can be able to join us, because in order for us to, attack the problem of being in debt and having it as a, having it as a generational curse,
Yeah.
we must start attacking it at the youngest age right now, and that's where your kids see.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree 100%, guys. So with that being said, guys, we're going to close out our session for tonight. We thank you guys once again for joining us, and I'll reach out individually to some of the folks that we have in mind that we would love to have, some of your teams on, because I have a lot of friends that have teams, and I would love to hear their perspective on certain things. We know we have some teams that are working, some that are in early high school, and and what they see around them. We're adults now. We're most of us are 20 years out of high school, so we don't know some of the things that they go through other than what they tell us. But we really like to hear from their perspective, about how that makes them feel if we have to tell them no, and why they need it so bad, and how that kind of affects their psyche. So with that being said, guys, we thank you for joining us tonight, and we're going to look forward to really having a deep session with everyone in 2 weeks. So please mark your calendars if you guys are available to come on with us, or feel free. We'll have the kids kind of join the Zoom session with us. They don't have to have their camera on if they don't want to, but we would like to just hear them speak and provide their feedback and their you know, and parents as well. We're more than welcome to have some parents on to speak as well. So we're going to open up the Zoom and really have some conversations, because we really want to start building this as a community where we have you guys talking, us interacting, and not just me and Rondell up here talking and
Yes.
talking to you guys, but we want to start building a community where we can start interacting and folks can start talking. We can start bouncing stuff off of each other's, and we can really build this thing out to where I think God wants to take it. So with that, guys, you guys have a great night, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. So, all right.
Yep.
Have a good one.
Have a good evening.
All right.